The phone call is a short film that uses form like foreshadowing, camera work, and editing to tell the audience all sorts of things. Let's start with the foreshadowing.
As a short film, every frame in the phone call has even greater significance. Starting with the opening scene of the film, the audience is presented with characteristics of the main character, the scene's setting, and allusion to an undisclosed backstory. While brief, this first scene draws in the audience emotionally and provides foreshadowing for the heaviness and drama of the plot. The film opens on a city street, not bustling, but certainly full of life. In the background, we see a couple sipping coffee, a moving truck, and indiscriminate passerbys with their faces blurred or obstructed. As the camera, and therefore the view of the audience, begins to move forward, we are shown the primary character, who is sitting with an anxious, uncomfortable, and reserved posture. Her arms and legs are crossed, and she is fidgeting in her position, unable to be comfortable. Even closer, and we see that she is reading a fairly long book that she is barely midway through, and there are tears welling up in her eyes. This opening suggests that there is a sentimental issue, possibly from her past, that whatever she has just read has interacted with. This masterful use of foreshadowing provides the audience with a sense of emotional connection to the character and works fundamentally to bring the audience in. Finally, as the film reaches its ending, the audience is presented with the same themes again. As the character we were just introduced to as Stanley on the phone, later revealed as a previous caller John, begins to slip further into his drug-induced suicide attempt, the same images reappear. Again, Heather is crying, and the jazz music and piano fill the air. Playing jazz, the audience finds, was the profession of the caller. These details both add to a sense of completeness and cement the earlier music as an ominous sign of foreshadowing misery.
This foreshadowed misery becomes apparent as we learn our protagonist's profession, a crisis call center operator. She's a young woman named Heather. Her emotions are sensitive, but she's very sweet, so there's an odd sort of logic to her working at a crisis call center. Her character development in the opening scene mirrors her development over the course of the rest of the film. This form of foreshadowing is particularly strong, in my opinion, because it allows the public to focus more on the plot and the development of other characters. The first scene shows her waiting at a bus stop. She starts by fidgeting with her hat, making sure she looks nice, but her care for her appearance dwindles as she reads what we can assume to be an emotional book. This development foreshadows the second scene, where she once again is concerned with vanity, but becomes focused on her emotions due to the inciting event, a phone call. This opening scene refuses to use more than a single cut until it fades out to introduce the second scene. This slow-paced use of real-time duration prepares the viewer for the way the rest of the short film will be shown, since only one scene is not portrayed in real time. This real-time narrative allows us to see how emotionally reactive the two main characters are. In the span of 15 seconds, Heather progresses from vanity to sadness. Secondly, after some research, we can be certain she's reading Ian Banks' book, The Crow Road, a novel about what happens after death, unrequited love, and a few other things. To see Heather welling up at this story gives us more insight into why she might work at a helpline call center. Perhaps she herself is yet to decide her belief in God, a purpose, or an afterlife. The book acts as a diegetic peek into Heather's emotions and is useful because it provides an implicit expectation for the viewer. Her soft reaction to the book causes the audience to expect more soft reactions throughout the film. People want to learn about other people, yet at the same time there's something appealing to a simple character that can evoke emotion. Distilling a single character trait into its purest version makes it easy to understand. This first scene boils down Heather's character so that when she's on the phone later, we can easily understand the pain of the two people, hers and the caller's.
We're first introduced to Heather's character with a slow panning long shot, which starts in the sky and slowly shifts downwards and to the left to reveal more of the setting. Gradually, Sally Hawkins enters the frame, alone, from the bottom left corner, and the camera begins to zoom in on her very, very slowly, turning the long shot into a medium long shot over an extended period of time. The focal point of the camera is on Heather, and her face is the only one we can really make out. The composition of this shot demonstrates the isolation of her character in the frame, which serves to convey to the audience both Heather's sense of independence and her feeling of being alone in the world, a theme which is reinforced throughout the entire film by the two main characters involved. Suddenly, we jump to a medium close-up on Heather's rather expressionless face and her book. The use of a medium close-up here also further emphasizes Heather's sense of personability and normalcy by demonstrating her appreciation of the simple intellectual pleasures such as reading. This shot also allows the audience to infer what they individually see fit about her character by imposing their own observations and biases onto her blank expression. This opening scene ends with a sustained focus on Heather's face and a gradual fade out to black before transitioning. Ending the scene by maintaining center on Heather's blank face and using a fade places a final emphasis on her emotional state of being and foreshadows, again, that this is something which will shift and remain prominent throughout the film. While the entirety of the opening scene lasts only 55 seconds, the use of long shots, slow zoom, and a medium close-up presents us with a bit of vital information pertaining to Heather and her current mental and emotional states, which will prove instrumental in understanding her development and the development of the story.
Throughout the film, an abundance of incredible film techniques are used to allow audiences to feel as though they are directly involved with the characters. One specific technique I'd like to focus on is the eyeline match cut, which is used multiple times during the film. The eyeline match cut begins with a shot of a character, in this instance that person being our protagonist Heather, looking off screen. This technique allows you to grasp what a specific character is feeling through giving you a look at the actual person before allowing you to see the situation through their eyes. We see this when Heather's facial expressions change after each cut to objects in her office that she is using to keep herself updated on Stan's current situation. Through this technique, we are able to capture Heather's continually changing condition throughout the very stressful scenario she is in. Throughout the film, we see a cut to a clock multiple times after Heather looks off screen. It is this quick switch from a close-up of her face to a clock ticking away slowly, which allows audiences to understand that she is timing how much time Stan, the man on the phone, has left to live. The most significant use of this technique, however, comes when Heather looks down. This is because all the cuts after she looks down change the mood of the film completely. You can feel a shift from there being an urgency to want to save Stan, to Heather having to accept that there is nothing she can do to save him. The two main cuts I'm referring to are after Heather looks down off camera to her notebook and to her watch in her hand. Heather goes from writing notes quickly in one scene to slow before stopping completely. It is as if, just through the movement of her hand, you could tell she felt defeated. As for the second instance, this cut shows her gently rubbing her own watch instead of watching the actual clock in her office, in a way that lets you know she has accepted what is going to happen. It is in these two specific scenes, through her body language, that the viewers can tell she is giving up and accepting Stan's fate. If it weren't for the perfect use of this technique in this film, I doubt it would have reached audiences like it did. This technique, although seeming very simple, gives you a deeper understanding of the film completely.
The smooth execution and planning that went into the form of this short film draws in the audience the same way any big-budget blockbuster would. With that said, thank you for listening, and I hope you learned something interesting.